If I had known how much one casual conversation could change my entire college experience, I probably wouldn't have shown up late that day. It was week 2 of the fall semester, and I was already behind. My sleep schedule was wrecked, my motivation non-existent. And the one class one had actually been excited about, contemporary issues in gender and media, was now one more thing on my growing list of shit to survive. I rushed in 10 minutes late, head down, laptop half open, mumbling an apology as I slid into the back row, and that's when I saw him. He wasn't the professor. That much I clocked immediately. Too young, too casually dressed. He had this effortless style. Black jeans, faded Converse, an oversized cardigan thrown over a white t-shirt. His hair was messy in a way that looked intentional, like he'd rolled out of bed and still managed to pull it off. A thin tattoo peeked out from under his sleeve when he reached up to adjust the projector. And when he spoke, "All right, let's settle in." It was low, calm, with this dry, steady confidence that made the entire room shut up. I didn't even know his name yet, but I knew one thing: I was screwed. His name was Adrian. Dr. Shepard, the actual professor, introduced him as her teaching assistant, a second-year grad student who'd be leading half our seminars and handling most of the grading. He didn't say much during that first class, just sat off to the side, flipping through the syllabus while Dr. Shepard talked about intersectionality and media narratives and why our first assignment was due before the /drop deadline. But I couldn't stop watching him. It wasn't just that he was attractive, though, yeah, he was very much that. It was the way he seemed still, not in a boring way, in a present way. Like he didn't feel the need to perform or fill space or prove anything. He looked like the kind of person who'd listen to you without interrupting and then destroy you in 3 sentences if you were full of shit, which made him exactly the kind of guy the first never talked to. Except 2 days later, I did. It was after seminar. We were in a small room in the humanities building, 20 of us crammed into a circle of mismatched chairs, and Adrian was leading that day's discussion. He posed questions that didn't feel like questions, more like traps, designed to make you rethink your entire argument. I kept quiet mostly, threw in a comment or two, tried not to sound like an idiot. But after class, when most people had filtered out, I stuck around. No real reason. Maybe I pretended to look for something in my bag. Maybe I just didn't want to go back to my dorm yet. He noticed. "You all right?" he asked, slinging his bag over one shoulder. I looked up, caught off guard. "Yeah, just tired." "Long week already?" "Something like that." He nodded, then paused like he wasn't sure whether to say what came next. "You made a good point today, about media saturation and burnout. Most people don't actually connect those two." I blinked. "Oh, thanks." He gave a quick smile. Not flirty, just genuine. "I used to zone out in seminars too, by the way. First year's rough." "I wasn't zoning out," I said, a little defensively. He smirked. "I didn't say you were, but you looked like you wanted to disappear." My face burned. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who used to be the same way. And then he left. Just like that. Boots thudding softly down the hallway. And I stood there, wondering how a 3-minute conversation had left me feeling like I'd just been seen naked. A week later, he emailed me. Nothing crazy, just a note about my seminar reflections. "You've got a strong voice. Don't be afraid to use it more in discussion." And beneath that, "If you ever want to bounce ideas around, feel free to drop by my office hours. Or here's my campus number. Text is fine too." I reread it 4 times before replying. And then I texted him that night. I didn't expect him to reply right away. It was a Friday night after all, and part of me assumed Adrian was probably out somewhere cool, doing something interesting with other cool, interesting people. Grad students always gave off that mysterious vibe, like they lived in the library, but also went to underground art shows on the weekends. Still, about 20 minutes after I sent a simple, "Hey, thanks for the feedback today. Appreciate it," my phone buzzed. "Adrian, hey, no problem at all. You've got a good eye. Don't sleep on your own takes." That alone would have been enough to keep me smiling like an idiot for the rest of the night. But then a second message popped up. "Adrian, You still up for talking ideas sometime? I sat there in my dimly lit dorm, half sunk into the beanbag chair I refused to give up from freshman year, staring at the screen like it had personally dared me to be brave. Me. Yeah, actually, I've got some half-formed thoughts for the media bias paper. Could use a sanity check. Adrian, cool, I'm at Common Grounds till 9 if you're around. I looked at the time, 8:12. No shower. Hoodie still smelled faintly like the gym. But I was up and grabbing my bag before I could even start second-guessing. Common Grounds was the indie cafe on the edge of campus, where all the English majors pretended to write poetry while actually swiping through dating apps. When I pushed through the door, I spotted Adrian immediately. Back corner, laptop open, coffee cup steaming beside it. He looked up, and his expression shifted instantly into a smile that was subtle, but warm enough to gut me. "Hey," he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Didn't think you'd come." "You invited me." "Yeah, but I also remember being your age. I wouldn't have shown up for a TA on a Friday night." I shrugged, trying to seem cooler than I felt. "Well, I'm tragically single and very uncool, so here I am." He laughed softly, like he actually found that charming. "Fair." We talked shop for a while. Paper structure, topic angles, sources he recommended. He was sharp but patient, the kind of guy who'd never make you feel stupid, even when he was 3 steps ahead of you. But the more we talked, the more the conversation drifted away from school. We talked about music. Turns out we both had a soft spot for sad indie bands and early 2000s emo. He told me about his first real heartbreak, a guy he met while studying abroad in Madrid. I told him about my high school boyfriend who cheated on me with a closeted football player, and how I still flinch when I hear Maroon 5 because of it. At one point, he asked, "You out to your folks?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Sort of. My mom's cool. My dad doesn't talk about it, pretends it's not a thing." He nodded in that way people do when they get it, without needing the full story. "Yeah. Mine took a while. We're good now. But there were a few bad years." I appreciated how he said it plainly. No dramatics. Just truth. At 9:45, the barista flipped the closing soon sign. I hadn't even noticed the time. Adrian stretched, and his cardigan slipped off one shoulder a bit. My eyes darted there before I could stop myself. He didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he was polite enough to pretend otherwise. "Want a walk?" he asked. The night air was colder than I expected. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pockets as we wandered across the quiet quad. Campus was practically deserted. We passed a couple making out against a tree and 2 guys skateboarding shirtless despite the temperature. "You always work this late?" I asked. Adrian glanced over, the streetlight casting soft shadows across his jawline. "Depends. I like working in cafes. It's harder to get stuck in my own head when there's noise around." "Same. My dorm's like a vacuum, too quiet. Feels like my thoughts get loud." He smiled. "Yeah, I get that." We paused near the old fountain, its water shut off for the season. The campus felt like a ghost town in the best possible way. I could hear the wind rustling through the trees, could feel how close he was beside me. "Thanks for coming out tonight," he said, almost like an afterthought. "I know it's weird, TA inviting you to talk shop off campus." It wasn't weird. "No?" "No," I said, meeting his eyes. I liked it. He looked at me for a long beat. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I didn't look away. Then he said, quiet and careful, "I have to be really cautious, with boundaries." "I know." He shifted his weight, glanced away, then back. "You're not just another student to me, though." The words landed like a thunderclap in my chest. "I'm not?" He shook his head slowly. "No, you're different." We stood there, the night stretching out in front of us, the space between our bodies suddenly electric. "I should go," he said eventually, but his voice was soft, reluctant. "Okay," I said, even though I didn't want him to. He turned to walk away, then paused, looked back. "Text me again sometime," he said. And I did. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying that moment near the fountain over and over. The way he'd said it. "You're not just another student to me." It wasn't a throwaway line. He didn't say it lightly. Adrian wasn't the type to say anything lightly. I wanted to believe it meant something. That it wasn't just a passing comment or something he'd regret saying after a night of being too tired and too open. But the truth was, I didn't know what it meant. Not really. And I didn't know what to do with it. I did what any 21-year-old would do in that situation. I overthought it. I didn't text him the next day, or the day after that. Not because I didn't want to. I did, desperately. But because I didn't want to come on too strong. I kept second-guessing every message I drafted. Too flirty, too formal, too casual, too soon. By the time Tuesday rolled around and I walked into class, I'd built the whole thing up so much in my head I almost felt nauseous. I hadn't seen him since the fountain. Hadn't heard from him either. I wasn't even sure if I'd imagined the whole thing, but the second I walked in, I caught him looking at me. He wasn't smiling. Not exactly. But there was something soft in his expression. Familiar. And when he gave me a subtle nod, like "I see you," everything in me settled for the first time in days. I nodded back, heart doing that weird, panicked flutter it always did around him. We didn't talk after class. There were too many people around, and he disappeared down the hallway with Dr. Shepard before I could catch up. But when I checked my phone later that evening, there it was. Adrian. "Didn't want to make things weird today. You good?" Me. "Yeah, I'm good. You?" Adrian. "Yeah, I just think about that night a lot." That last text sat on my screen for a solid minute before I could form a response. Me. "Me too." Adrian. "Can I ask you something?" Me. "Of course." Adrian. "If I wasn't your TA, would you want to hang out again?" My chest squeezed. The answer was so obvious I couldn't believe he had to ask. Me. "Yeah, I would." There was a pause. A long one. Long enough that I started wondering if I'd said too much. Then, Adrian. "I'm off this weekend. No grading, no office hours. You want to get dinner?" We met Saturday night at a little Thai place a few blocks off campus. It wasn't fancy. Dim lighting, worn leather booths, the smell of garlic and spice seeping into your clothes. But it was quiet, and off the radar enough that we didn't run into anyone from school. When I got there, he was already seated, nursing a Thai iced tea and reading something on his phone. He looked up when I walked in and smiled in that calm, unreadable way he always did, like he was letting himself feel something, but only just. "You're early," I said as I slid into the booth across from him. "So are you." We talked like normal at first. Safe topics, food, music, movies. But the undertone was different now. There was something else in the way we watched each other. Something we weren't saying out loud. Over pad CU and curry, I told him about my messed up sleep schedule, my annoying roommate. The class 1 was low-key failing and pretending I wasn't. He listened like it mattered, not just nodding, really listening. And then, somewhere between appetizers and the check, he leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice quiet. "Can I be honest with you?" "Please do." He looked down at his hands for a second before meeting my eyes again. "I've never done this before." "What do you mean?" "Crossed lines," he said, "even just emotionally. With a student." My throat tightened. "Is that what we're doing?" "I don't know," he admitted. "That's the thing. I don't know what this is. But I think about you more than I should. And when you're in seminar, I catch myself waiting to hear what you'll say, or hoping you'll stay after, or text me." I didn't breathe for a second, just sat there, letting his words settle between us. "I think about you too," I said, way more than I should. He exhaled, a little laugh of relief escaping. "Okay. Good." We didn't talk much after that. The conversation had shifted, and we both felt it. Not in a bad way, more like we'd stepped into something that neither of us could take back now. When we walked out, the air had that late autumn chill that made you wish you'd brought a thicker jacket. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and we stood on the sidewalk like we weren't sure how to say goodbye. "Do you want to come over?" he asked. I blinked. "To yours?" He nodded. "Just to talk more. or not talk. No pressure. I hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. His apartment was small but warm. Books stacked on nearly every surface. A half-dead plant on the windowsill. A couch that had clearly seen better days. It felt lived in the best way. Not messy, just real. He made us tea. We sat on the couch, side by side but not touching. At some point, the conversation slowed. Silence stretched. The kind that didn't need to be filled. Then, quietly, Adrian said, "Can I kiss you?" My heart flipped. "Yes," I said. And he did. Slowly, carefully, like he was memorizing it, like he wanted to be sure it was okay at every step. And it was. God, it was. There's something strange about kissing someone for the first time when you've already imagined it 100 different ways. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't some clumsy dive into each other like I'd pictured late at night, wrapped in my sheets in fantasy. It was slow, thoughtful, like he was trying to map the shape of my mouth with his. His hand came up to my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and I leaned into it like I'd been waiting for that touch since the first seminar. When we finally pulled apart, we were both quiet. Not awkward, just overwhelmed in the best kind of way. I kept my eyes on his, wondering if he regretted it, if reality had hit, but he just smiled, small and a little breathless. "I've wanted to do that for a while," he said. I swallowed. "Me too." We didn't kiss again right away. Instead, we sat there, close but not pressed together, letting the moment settle. He passed me my mug of tea again, like nothing monumental had just happened, like we were still just two guys talking literature on a Saturday night. But my entire body was humming. He asked if I wanted to stay the night, but not in a way that implied anything physical. Just stay. Like he didn't want the night to end either. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew how easily feelings got complicated when sleepovers were involved. But I nodded anyway. "Yeah," I said. "If that's okay, more than okay," he replied. We didn't sleep together that night. Not in the way people mean when they say that. We both changed into sweats and brushed our teeth side by side in the tiny bathroom, trying not to laugh at how domestic it all felt already. His bedroom was barely bigger than a closet, just a bed and 2 milk crates stacked like a bookshelf. There was a candle burned halfway down on the windowsill, and a sketch of a city skyline framed above his bed. He offered me a spare pillow and one of his t-shirts. "I've only got one blanket," he said, half apologetic. "That's okay," I said, even though my brain immediately short-circuited at the idea of being that close again. I run cold anyway. When we climbed into bed, we both stayed on our own sides for a while. The space between us felt like something alive. Not awkward, but buzzing. Eventually, Adrian rolled onto his side and looked at me in the dark. "You comfortable?" "Yeah," I whispered. Another pause. Then, even softer. "Do you want me to hold you?" I didn't answer. I just moved closer until my head found the space under his chin, my hand curling against his chest. He wrapped an arm around me and let out a slow breath, like something inside him had finally relaxed. It was probably the best sleep I'd had in months. The next morning was quiet in the kind of way you hope a morning after will be. No tension. No "what did we just do?" Energy. He made coffee in an oversized mug and didn't say anything when I padded around his kitchen barefoot, yawning and trying not to seem too comfortable. We sat on the floor near the heater because the apartment was freezing. He pulled his knees up to his chest, his eyes squinting against the steam rising from his cup. "I know this changes things," he said, not looking at me. "It doesn't have to be a thing," I said quickly. "If you're worried about—" "I am worried," he cut in gently. "But not in the way you think." I stayed quiet. "I'm worried because I like you," he said, "and I'm not good at casual or sneaking around. And if I keep seeing you like this, I'm going to want to see you for real, out in the open, not just behind closed doors." My throat tightened. "I'd want that too," I said, "but I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want to mess up your program or put you in a bad spot." Adrian nodded. I know. That's the line I'm trying to walk. We sat there for a while longer, the heater rattling beside us. Then he reached over and took my hand. I'm not saying we need to put a label on this right now, he said, but I'm also not pretending this is nothing. Me neither. We didn't call it dating. Not at first. We just kept finding excuses to see each other. Paper consultations turned into late-night takeout. Casual, want to walk with me? Texts turned into hours-long phone calls. The first time he touched my lower back as we crossed the street together, I thought I might lose my mind. It was easy, but tense too, in that careful, controlled way where every move felt like it had stakes. I couldn't talk about it with anyone. Not my roommate, not my friends. I didn't want to put Adrian in a position where rumors could spiral. He didn't talk about it either, except to me. At night, when we were alone, he let his guard down. He told me about how isolating grad school could be. How some days he questioned if teaching was even what he wanted. How sometimes he still felt like an imposter, like everyone around him had it figured out, and he was just faking it really well. I told him about how I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my degree, how being back on campus after a messy summer off had made me feel like I'd lost a step, like I was constantly playing catch-up. We weren't two perfect people, we were just two people trying to figure it out. Together, quietly. The first time things almost got complicated was during midterms. One of the students in our class, Kayla, got caught plagiarizing. Dr. Shepard wanted Adrian to handle it, but since I'd helped Kayla with her outline in a study group, I got pulled into it too. There was nothing tying me to her mistake, but the whole situation made me nervous. And when I got nervous, I got weird. Adrian noticed. "You've been distant this week," he texted one night. I stared at the message, unsure how to answer. I knew what I wanted to say. I'm scared someone's gonna find out. I'm scared I'm gonna lose you. I'm scared I'm already too attached. Instead, I just wrote, "Me. Sorry. Just stressed." 2 minutes later, Adrian. "Me too, wanna come over?" No pressure. Just, "I miss you." And just like that, the tension in my chest cracked a little. Adrian opened the door before I even knocked. Like he'd been standing right there, waiting. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me for a moment, his face unreadable in the soft hallway light. Then he stepped back and let me in, and as soon as the door clicked shut behind us, he pulled me into a hug that was tighter than usual. Not sexual, not even romantic. Just this full-body exhale of a hug, like he was holding on for more than just warmth. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low against the side of my neck. I nodded into his shoulder. "Yeah. Now." We stood like that for a while, neither of us saying anything. His apartment was dim, just the warm light from the kitchen counter and the glow of a desk lamp. It smelled like black tea and whatever cologne he always wore, the kind that clung to his sweaters and lingered in my clothes for days after. When we finally let go, he looked tired, not in the way people look after a long day, in the way people look when they're trying really hard to hold something together. "I don't like not talking to you," he said. "I didn't mean to shut you out," I replied. "It's just, I got nervous. About the Kayla thing. About everything." "I know," he said. "It freaked me out too. But we didn't do anything wrong. And even if someone ever did find out about us, it's not like you're in my section anymore. You dropped the class weeks ago." That part was true. I'd transferred to a different section right after midterms, officially citing, quote, "schedule conflicts." But we both knew the real reason. It had felt like the safest move, like maybe it would let us breathe. "I just don't want to mess this up for you," I said. He stepped closer, resting his hands lightly on my hips. "You being in my life doesn't mess anything up," he said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. We spent the rest of the night half tangled on his couch, a blanket pulled over both of us, reruns of 30 Rock playing in the background. I'd seen every episode before, but with Adrian, the jokes landed differently. Not funnier, just warmer somehow, like they were part of some shared ritual, that made everything feel less complicated. At one point, his hand slipped under my hoodie and settled on my waist, fingers brushing the bare skin above my jeans. I didn't say anything. I just shifted closer, my forehead pressing against his shoulder, and he pulled me in without a word. That night, we didn't talk about what we were. We didn't need to. We just were. The weeks that followed had a rhythm. We met up when we could. Sometimes at his place, sometimes just walking aimlessly across campus at night with cups of shitty vending machine coffee, trading theories about whatever book he was reading for class. Sometimes he came to my place, staying just long enough to kiss me breathless in the doorway before disappearing back into the night, with his coat half-buttoned and his hair a mess from my hands. There was this unspoken understanding between us, a kind of emotional shorthand that made everything feel natural, even if we weren't technically calling it a relationship. I didn't ask what we were, and he didn't offer, but slowly things shifted. He stopped calling me man in texts, started using my name more, and only my name. Never dude, never bro. I stopped pretending it didn't matter when he touched the back of my neck just a little longer than necessary, or when he sent me pictures of his morning coffee like they were meant just for me. We were slipping into something. Carefully, willingly, even if we didn't say it out loud. The first person to suspect something was Jesse, my roommate. It started with a comment one morning when I got back from Adrian's apartment after spending the night studying. "You smell like someone else's soap," he said, raising an eyebrow. I blinked, pausing in the doorway. "I showered at the gym." "Sure you did," he said, grinning as he returned to his cereal. "Tell your gym buddy, he's got good taste in cologne." I didn't reply. I just shrugged and retreated to the bathroom before he could press further. It wasn't that I didn't trust Jesse. I did, but the idea of saying it out loud, that I was seeing someone, that it was my TA, that we hadn't told anyone, it still felt fragile. Like speaking it might undo it. I knew Adrian felt the same. Whenever I mentioned friends or classmates, he tensed slightly. Not in a jealous way, in a cautious one. We were still private, still deliberate, still navigating the edges of what we could be. Then, one night, everything changed. I was walking back from the library, headphones in, head down, when I got a text from Adrian. "Adrian, are you free right now?" "Me? Yeah. Just left the library." "Adrian, can you come over? Like now?" That wasn't like him. He never texted like that unless something was wrong. I texted back a quick on my way and started walking faster. He opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, hair slightly damp, eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen before. "What's wrong?" I asked the second I stepped inside. He didn't say anything at first, just walked back to the couch and dropped into it, rubbing his hands over his face. "They asked me about you," he said finally. I froze. "Who did?" "Dr. Shepard. She said someone from the department saw us together last week. At the bookstore. Said it looked personal." My chest tightened. "What did you say?" "I said we're friends, that you're not in my section anymore, that I was helping you with a paper." "Did she believe you?" He looked up at me then. "I don't know." For a while, we sat in silence. The tension in the room was heavy. Not angry, just full of fear neither of us knew how to express. "I don't want to stop seeing you," he said quietly, "but I need to be careful. One complaint and the department could pull my funding. Or worse." "I know," I said. "I don't want you to get hurt. Or lose anything because of me." He shook his head. "It's not because of you. It's because we're in a situation that's built to make this feel wrong." I sat down beside him, our knees touching. "So what do we do?" He leaned back, exhaling. "We slow down. We stay quiet. And we figure it out, one step at a time." I nodded, but something in my chest ached. Because I didn't want to slow down. I wanted to fall, all the way. We didn't stop seeing each other, but we did stop pretending it didn't scare us. After that night, there was a shift. It wasn't dramatic, no big emotional speech or silent treatment, but it was there. Little things. The way he'd checked the time before I came over. The way he didn't walk too close to me in public anymore. The way we both jumped a little if someone knocked on the door while we were together. It wasn't that we were doing anything wrong. Technically, I wasn't his student anymore. But technically didn't mean safe, and in academia, perception mattered more than truth. One rumor, one complaint. That was all it would take. So we adapted, quietly. Some nights we didn't go to his place. We met in empty parts of campus instead. The top floor of the old science building no one used, the back lawn of the art museum after dark, even the empty bleachers near the athletic field. We'd sit with coffee in hand, knees touching, talking about everything and nothing. Those moments, strange as they were, felt more intimate than anything else. There was something thrilling in the quietness, like we were creating a world inside the world. No audience, no judgment, just us. One night in early December, we met near the faculty parking lot, behind the library. It was snowing. That soft, silent kind of snow that muffled every sound and made the whole campus feel like a dream. He was already there when I arrived, hood up, hands in his coat pockets. I walked up behind him and tapped his shoulder gently. He turned, and even in the dim light, I could see the stress on his face. "Hey," I said. He smiled. Just barely. "Hey." We didn't say much at first. We just started walking, our footsteps crunching lightly in the fresh snow. Eventually, he spoke. Shepard brought it up again. My heart sank. "Seriously?" He nodded. "She says she's not accusing me of anything, but she wants to keep things professional. She didn't name you, but she knows. Knows or suspects? Enough to make it messy." We kept walking. The cold bit at my cheeks. I didn't know what to say. I was angry, but mostly, I just felt helpless. "I've been thinking about taking the offer," he said after a while. I turned to look at him. "What offer?" He hesitated. I didn't want to bring it up until I was sure. There's a research fellowship at NYU. I applied kind of on a whim last semester, and they reached out again. It's fully funded. Semester starts in January. I stopped walking. "So, you'd be gone in a month?" He nodded, eyes searching mine. "I don't want to leave. Not because of this, but it's an incredible opportunity." I nodded, my throat tight. "Of course. You'd be stupid not to take it." He looked down. "That's not what I needed to hear right now." I took a shaky breath. "What do you want me to say, Adrian? That I'm okay with it? That I'm not totally crushed?" "No," he said. "I want you to say something real." So I did. "I don't want you to go," I said. "Not just because I'm scared of what happens to this, but because I haven't had something this good in, maybe ever. And the idea of losing it, losing you, hurts like hell." He didn't say anything, but I could see it in his face. He felt the same. He didn't make a decision that night. But 2 days later, he told me over the phone. I said yes. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart thudding. "When do you leave?" "January 9th. It was December 11th. A month. We had a month. I expected the last few weeks to be frantic. A countdown, a panic, some kind of desperate attempt to hold on tighter. But they weren't. They were soft. We didn't fill every day. We didn't try to squeeze in meaning. We just let the time be what it was. Quiet dinners at his apartment, long walks, holding hands under our jackets when no one was around. He taught his last section on the 14th. I wasn't in it, but I waited outside the building after. He stepped out, a stack of papers under one arm, scarf pulled up around his neck. "You look like a tired literature professor," I said, smiling. "I feel like one." He leaned in and kissed me, fast but firm. And for once, we didn't look around to see if anyone was watching. On Christmas Eve, I stayed over. We made boxed pasta, lit the candle that always sat by his bed, and opened 2 stupid little gifts we bought for each other. I gave him a secondhand copy of The Little Prince, something we'd talked about once in passing. He gave me a leather-bound notebook. "For what?" I asked. "Anything," he said. "Just write." We didn't talk about January that night. We just lay there in the dark, his fingers tracing slow, thoughtless patterns across my back, while I rested against him, listening to his breathing and trying not to cry. New Year's came fast, then the last week, and then it was January 9th. He didn't let me come to the airport, said it'd be easier that way, cleaner. Instead, he invited me over the night before. We ordered Thai again, same place, same dishes, We sat on the floor, backs against the couch, just like we had the first time we kissed. "Is this the end?" I asked at one point, unable to pretend I was fine. He didn't answer right away, just reached for my hand and held it. "I don't know," he said finally. "But it's not goodbye." I nodded, even if I didn't know what that meant. We didn't cry that night. It wasn't that kind of ending. It was quiet, gentle. He kissed me one last time by the door, his bag already packed, his scarf looped twice around his neck. "Be good," he whispered. "You too." And then he was gone. The first week after Adrian left felt like walking through fog. It wasn't heartbreak. Not exactly. More like this strange, suspended version of life, where everything still looked the same, but nothing felt quite right. I still went to class. I still wrote papers. I still ate cereal at 2 a.m. and forgot to do my laundry. But there was a space beside me now, a space that hadn't been there before him, but one I felt constantly after. The day after he left, I opened the notebook he gave me. On the inside cover, he'd written, "For when you need a place to say the things you can't say out loud." Adrian I stared at those words for a long time. Then I flipped to the first blank page and started writing. About him. About us. About that night in the snow and the Thai food and the candle by his bed. I didn't try to make it poetic. I just wrote what I remembered, what I missed, what scared me, what stayed. It helped. A little. We kept in touch, but not obsessively. That was the unspoken rule. No pressure. He texted when he could, usually late at night, between grading or trying to adjust to the chaos of New York. I texted back when I could, between lectures and long shifts at the campus writing center. Sometimes the messages were simple. "Adrian, ran into a guy who looked just like that barista you hate, traumatized all over again." Me, "Did he also write your name as Brayden even though you clearly said Adrian?" Adrian, even worse. He said, "It's just a vibe thing." Sometimes they were heavier. Me, "Wish you were here tonight." Adrian, "I never really left. We didn't talk every day. We didn't FaceTime. But we never disappeared either." It was like this small, glowing thread between us. Fragile, but real. Spring rolled around, then summer. I dated someone briefly, a guy from my film class. Sweet, funny, uncomplicated. But it didn't stick. I kept waiting to feel something more. Something that matched the way Adrian made me feel. Just by sitting next to me and making some dry comment about pop culture or academic politics. The guy could tell. We ended it after 3 weeks. No drama. I told Adrian about it one night. I figured I should. His reply was short, but honest. "Adrian, if I'm being totally selfish, I'm glad it didn't work out." I stared at that for a while, then wrote back, "Me too." By fall, Adrian was still in New York, his fellowship extended, now working with a small publishing imprint doing editorial research. He loved it, even though he missed teaching. And I was starting my final year, finally feeling like I wasn't drowning every week. We still talked, still texted, still existed in each other's lives, in this strange, undefined space that wasn't exactly dating but wasn't nothing either. Then, one day, I got an email. Subject line, guest lecture opportunity, returning alum. It was from Dr. Shepard. Apparently, Adrian had reached out about coming back to guest lecture for a week in November, a kind of soft return, part of a new series on alumni doing interdisciplinary work. He'd proposed a session on queer narratives and emerging media. She wanted to know if I could help coordinate the event on the student side. My hands shook a little as I hit reply. He arrived on a Tuesday. I didn't see him on campus that morning. But at 3:37 p.m., I got a message. "Adrian, room 217, 15 minutes early. Is this where I pretend I'm not nervous?" Me, "You're not allowed to be nervous. You're the guest." Adrian, "So I shouldn't tell you I've rewritten my opening line 4 times? Me, "Please do. I need the chaos." When I walked into the room, he was standing at the front, organizing his notes like he hadn't left the building 10 months ago. And then he looked up and saw me. Neither of us moved at first, Then he gave me that same look he gave me outside the bookstore, outside the library, outside his apartment. That calm, slow, grounding smile that always made my stomach drop in the best way. "Hey," he said, "hey." I walked up to the desk. For a second, we were just two people, but beneath it, all that time between us started to collapse. "I've been thinking about this moment since I emailed Shepard," he said. "What? Seeing me again?" "No," he said, his smile widening just a bit. "Seeing you and not kissing you immediately." I laughed, quiet and sharp. "You still can't," I said. "Not until after the lecture," he replied. "But maybe after that. I don't want to do this halfway anymore." My breath caught. "You don't?" He shook his head. "I want to see what this looks like when it's not secret. When it's just us, without all the rules." I nodded. "Okay. Okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Let's see what that looks like." And that night, after the lecture, after the Q&A and the awkward applause and the polite small talk with Shepard, he kissed me, right there on the steps of the humanities building. No one else around. No sneaking. No fear. Just us. For the first time, in the open. And it felt like starting over, but in a way that wasn't about forgetting anything. It was about building something new, right on top of everything we'd already survived.